Good evening and welcome to Inside Government, a show put together by CU Community College and put on Spectrum, Verizon Fios, as well as ARMA, the Auburn Regional Media Access, and Win 89.1, the college's radio station. We're back from spring break, and I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. We are delighted to have in the studio today Jeff Dygert, the city manager for the City of Auburn, and the city's new Comptroller, who's been here in different capacities over the years, Beth Leeson, who just joined as the City Comptroller recently. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the city, but more importantly, talk about the budget because you're in the middle, knee-deep in that, if not higher in the budget. So welcome to both of you back. Welcome and congratulations on your new job.
Thank you.
So we'll talk about that in a second, but this is your 7th budget, lucky 7.
I'm glad you're keeping track.
Where are you in the process?
We're relatively in the beginning stages, so we've gone through and each of the department heads have submitted their budgets to Mary Beth and I for review and for the compilation into the big overall budget. We've met with all of the department heads to whittle those down a little bit to more manageable levels. About 2 weeks ago, the individual departments started presenting to council, and this Thursday, Mary Beth will be presenting the overall budget to the council.
Including revenue.
Including revenue.
Which we'll get to in a second. So at this point, has City Council given you, as the manager, any direction on spending or taxes?
Not specifically. We have general discussions throughout the whole thing. My goal is always to, obviously work with the comptroller and our department heads to present a balanced budget right from the outset. That's always the goal. But there's a variety of ways that we can achieve a balanced budget, as you know.
So at this particular stage, unless something has changed in the last 2 hours, there is no state budget.
That's correct.
Okay, which is not a big deal yet. It most likely is more so for you than for some other municipalities.
Because of the timing, right? So the timing of the state budget and our budget development, it's impactful, right? If we knew exactly what the state budget was and knew what our allocations were in different areas, makes it easier for us to put a finer point on the budget.
So let's talk about 2 of them that are variables, possibly. Mm-hmm. One is Mayor Genatino, who was back at the NICOM meeting, was arguing for an increase in municipal aid. Correct. Separate from the arterial, we'll get to that in a second. Mm-hmm. Are you planning in your budget to increase municipal aid, which has not been increased in, 14 years?
No, because there's not a strong enough indication that that's going to change at this point. I hope it does change. It needs to change, but there's not.
But if they adopted a budget in 3 weeks and you got that money extra, you're not including it now. It would be a boon for the city after the budget presentation.
Correct. I don't know if boon is an appropriate term, but it would provide some relief.
That was my thesaurus word today.
Yeah,
okay. So on the other hand, what does look more likely is an increase in money for the arterial, correct?
The transportation funding, and there's typically around 5 different lines or different programs that comes to us, and currently we've budgeted for the same funding from New York State as we had the year before this current year.
But there is a discussion right now in the budget of the state budget of increasing it dramatically. Am I correct on that?
Yes. Last year there was a significant increase in that. This year the governor's proposed budget is back to the previous year.
Okay.
So we've based the budget on that previous year's allocations from New York State. There are strong indications that that number will change, but we don't know what it's going to be.
When do you hope to have a budget presented to council, first of all? A full document?
The full document? That would probably be a good question for Mary Beth right at this point. How's your schedule looking right now?
So I think that we're in a very good space right now. I have a presentation pretty much ready for Thursday night that reflects a reasonable budget, I think, and depending on how that meeting goes, they have a couple weeks to kind of process that and get back to me, and then I could give them
So
some
this
detail.
is different than the bad old days where they would get a budget and then hear the presentations. Now you're doing department presentations up front.
Right.
And then, is that to gauge where you see support, or is it to just jumpstart the process?
No, so the presentations serve 2 purposes, right? I think the presentations help to educate the public and they help to educate the council. Now, as you know, 3 of our counselors have got some experience and 2 of our counselors are new. So we're utilizing the presentations to also educate the new counselors on all the different programming and things like that, and all the different operations of the individual
So
departments.
Dr. Overstreet Wilson and
Counselor
Counselor
Clarko.
Clarko, who both have served in different governments, oddly enough, county and school district, but you still need to bring them up to speed on that process.
It seems like the appropriate thing to do, right? Instead of just saying, here's what the budget is, and these are the programs it supports.
So when you were here in November, we talked a little bit about what you were doing on transition. I know you were having meetings and tours. How is that transition gone? Are you done with the transitional work other than budget right now?
No, I think that continues, right? I mean, I can't imagine that anybody could step into one of those positions and be fully up to speed with everything that's going on. So, you know, we intentionally set up meetings with individual departments so that there can be some familiarization there, but there's so many different individual programs and initiatives that, you know, case by case, we continue to educate.
And your goal is to have a budget, well, you have to legally have the budget in place by July 1st. When do you hope to have a budget vote?
I believe the budget votes first week of June.
Yes.
So
if I
about 60
remember correctly.
days.
Yep.
Okay. So a little bit about you, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
How long have you been comptroller now?
I started August 25th.
All right. So you're in your 8th month right now, roughly. Where did you come from before?
So I was working for the college previously.
We had offices just down the hall from each
We
other.
had offices just down the
We
hall.
miss you on the 2nd floor.
Aw, thank you.
So you were with the city, or excuse me, with
the county.
As well.
Yep.
And so what's the portfolio for the comptroller besides this important task of the budget?
So, you know, the comptroller oversees treasurer, assessor, and then like payroll finance kind of functions. So definitely this year is kind of just learning the whole function of the department and where we can find some efficiencies. We're really trying to get a good handle on costs and trying to manage those. So,
And unlike Fulton and Oswego right now, where it's hitting the fan literally on assessments,
Yes.
if you've been reading about them, you have not done a reval.
we have not.
When is your next reval? Are you a couple years out?
A couple years out.
Okay.
So I think at the end of 25, we'll be gearing up for that next reval.
What year?
At the end of this budget
this year,
cycle, we
okay.
have to start preparing for that next process.
So I want to get to specifics of the budget, but everybody wants to know one number. Is there going to be a tax increase?
I am proposing a tax increase to the 2% cap.
Okay, so a 2%, because people think, well, 2% on a how much budget
Right now it's 47 million.
would be, terrifically a lot of money,
Correct.
but it ain't.
But it's not.
So I remember, I think you once told me it got, a couple years ago, it got you half of a street half of a police car or 100 yards of blacktop.
It depends on how you look at it, and that's changed a little bit as the budgets have increased over the years. But
So what would 2% get you?
2% gives us 544,000.
Which is a lot more than a couple years
Yes.
ago.
there used to be a time when 1% equaled about $100,000.
Right, okay. So with that being said, you'll make your recommendations, but when you were on a year ago, roughly a year, 51 weeks ago, you had a large gap. Your then comptroller, Rachel Jacobs, had said you were at about a $3 million gap between revenues and expenses. You've gotten all these presentations. I don't know what's your gap now, and is that based on existing budget or on what people have asked for?
So right now we've gone through, after meeting with departments, and made some cuts in everybody's requests, and then finished our revenue budget. With putting the tax increase in, we're looking at just over $2 million shortfall from fund balance.
Okay. So does that mean, what's your fund balance right now?
6.3 million.
And is that within the New York State Comptrollers, not your comptroller, most likely is within yours, but is that within the range of the state comptrollers?
Yes, so we are trying to make sure that our fund balance is within that acceptable range from the state comptroller, as well as our own fund balance policy. And we are in that range at this time, so.
Did you use fund balance for this current year?
We did use fund balance for this current year. There's been a lot of activity and things that happened that changed the way that projection landed.
What was the original projection?
I believe it was somewhere in the ballpark of 1.3 million was the original projected use of fund balance. I am still working through a new projection of where
For this year?
For this current year, yes.
For the coming year, do you think you will go into the fund balance?
We probably will go slightly into the fund balance, yes.
So not at 1.3 or 2 million?
That is my hope.
Okay. So let's talk about some individual items that you have. You're just finished the third quarter, so I know you do not have, if you have third quarter numbers, that would be great. But you have finished roughly the third quarter of the city's current year. Are you on track on sales tax? Is that number solid to what you budgeted for?
I think we're really close to
We're
it.
close. It's a
not-
little bit behind, but not significantly behind.
And do you see sales tax revenue for 24-25 going up as a percentage in the budget, or are you keeping it flat?
I'm keeping it flat.
And we're, again, you're at third quarter, maybe this is an easier number, but maybe it's not. Revenues to expenses, where are you on? You said you're making adjustments on fund balance, which tells me that you have had some changes either in revenues or expenses.
On both sides, we've
Okay.
had some adjustments, and so I'm not entirely certain where we're going to land. We've done a lot of work in closing out some capital projects that came in under budget, and that money gets returned to the fund where it came from. So the general fund is receiving some funds back.
We're going to get to the Lake Avenue Bridge, but in a case where something is state funded, let's just say hypothetically, you're not at the school district where you get 95%, but say
Right.
you get 60%, and it comes in under budget, does that mean the state doesn't give you the money, or do they give you the full 60% and you save money so you get to keep it?
It depends on the type of funding. Some of it has to get returned if it's that type of funding. Everything that I'm returning right now is stuff that we had borrowed for.
Okay.
So we'll be using that to pay down debt.
So when you were here in November, it was just after the election, and one of the election issues was the ambulance service, because you got to find something for an election.
Right.
And so one of the issues was uncollected bills. And there was a number that was tossed out. Where are you on uncollected revenues right now? Is
So
it-
we are just a couple of months into a relationship with a debt collection company. So we really, they're still working through that. Seems to be a good relationship with a
so are
responsible
you starting to
company.
get money? Is money starting to flow back
Yes,
in?
it's going to be a process. The whole billing process takes a long time, as anybody who maybe has gone through, you know, the personal, your personal bills with a doctor and insurance sometimes take some time to work out. So that's one of the situations we have. There's a significant lag time in payments, and then if there's no payment, then there's another lag time for collection beyond that.
I'm not even going to ask you about squatters.
But we're
Where people get- but there are
confident-
some
we're confident
reactions
we're
here.
in good shape with, or the best shape we can be in with our medical billing and collections. Definitely
Any
are,
idea how much is out there still?
off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you that. I really don't know.
You gave a State of the City speech recently.
Yes.
One of the items that was drawn out of that was that your call volume on the ambulance service is up.
Significantly, yes.
So you're last year were at 7,000 calls,
Give or take, a little over 7,000 calls,
and you expect 10,000 this year.
10,000 plus calls this year.
Okay, that's an enormous number.
Correct.
Why?
Well, if you recall, on December 31st of 2023, the private provider AMR, who provided ambulance service to Cayuga County, pulled out of Cayuga County with notice and allowed some planning to take place. But that call volume had to be taken up someplace. So we...
Does that mean you get paid automatically because it's outside the city?
No. No, it does not. It does
So,
not.
so telling taxpayers, why are they subsidizing outside the city of Auburn?
And that's something that we, along with all of our mutual aid partners, have got to work on. Something of interest to you, maybe for future reading enjoyment, is the New York State Comptroller just offered a report on the status of ambulance service in New York State just within the last couple of days. So that's an interesting read and touches on
I'm trying to
the
get through
EMS crisis
I'm
here.
trying to get through some other books right now, but thank
Yeah,
you.
well, it's
so,
a short
okay,
read.
but the question is, so you gave a breakdown of
So
what it is. Some of it goes to
much
people
like-
transporting from the Auburn Community Hospital to another community.
Sure.
That would be.
I believe that was like roughly 9% of the calls that we do.
But it
for
looks like
service.
15% outside the city.
I think it was 16%.
Okay, so again, that is a significant. Is that what is driving that 7,000 to 10,000 number?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we have to look at that, and at some point there's efficiencies, right? So the busier the ambulance service is, the more efficient it is, like any other service. So we're going to have to take a good look at that. We have to see how things kind of shake out. There's still a lot being done behind the scenes related to how the county may or may not step in to this. A lot of counties across the state, about a third, if not half of the counties in New York State have actually stepped in to provide EMS service or supplement EMS service because this is a crisis not only in Auburn and Cayuga County, but all across the state and all across the country.
So the expectation with 10,000 calls will be the expenses will be up.
Expenses will be up, the revenue should be up. You know, we're going to have to at some point step back, take a look at that. And
But
see
you
what
could
that
see
looks
why
like.
people would be a little shell-shocked
absolutely.
with outstanding debt, is that all of a sudden the city's subsidizing. So is that tied in any way? I know there was a discussion with the new occupancy tax, or an increase in the occupancy tax.
Mm-hmm.
The city is asking that if there is a county occupancy tax, that the city get a share, correct?
The city is looking to establish its own occupancy tax. Right now, it's a county occupancy tax, and that funding goes to, essentially to the tourism.
Okay, no, I understand. I'm sorry, I didn't word this right. So where would the city occupancy tax go? And are you doing this because you have to generate revenue?
Essentially, it would offset the expenses that we currently have related to tourism and things like
Specifically the visitor center.
that. That would be one of them, but there are other things that we do related to tourism as well.
Such as?
When you look at the things that we do, our summer events and things like that. So there's a whole host of things that we do in city parks and just downtown events and city events and things like that that are, if you look at them, really, you know, they're for our community, but in a lot of cases, like Founder's Day, it's an opportunity to draw people in as well.
For sure. Okay. So let's talk about a little bit about specifics in the budget expenses. So the largest, the presentation that's gotten the most attention most likely is police right now. So they are asking for an increase of about 18% from 7.7 to 9.1 million. Am I correct on that? Why the increase?
I think, you know, there's a few factors. One would be equipment. You know, they've asked for 7 police cars. We didn't fund vehicles last year, so they're a little bit behind in their rotation of vehicles. That's a large expense. Overtime has been high just because their staffing and police departments across the country are having difficulty staffing.
So you had added maybe 2 new police officers in December. You still have 6 vacancies out there. I know
Right.
Chief Sladen's been sitting in that chair, and he's talked about just how tough it is to recruit.
Right. So the hope is for another 2 or 3 to get into the next upcoming class. And
But that
we'll
won't
see how that goes.
reduce your overtime until
Not
well
for-
into the 3rd or 4th quarter of next year, correct?
Probably almost a year.
Yeah,
It's roughly a year-long process.
So do you have a list that you have reachable candidates now? Because I know there was an issue where everyone says, oh, 100 people take the test, so you have
Not
100.
anymore.
Not only do they not 100 people don't take it, but you lose half right off the bat.
Correct.
Because they may not pass it. Then you have physicals in there, psychological reviews,
Yep.
and then they still got to get to the academy. So your number shrinks to a handful.
Rapidly, yes.
So how big a pool do you still think you have?
I don't recall what the pool is. It's a relatively small list that exists now. We've been working with New York State Civil Service, not only us, but municipalities across the state, And it sounds like New York State Civil Service is very seriously working towards a continuous enrollment process for police officers.
Because one of the issues, if I remember correctly, is that you could only give a test once a year, and that
At best.
and that was limiting. And it's not like every other, whether it's the sheriff's department, the state troopers, everybody's trying to recruit.
Correct.
With that, one of the reasons you have a large number of vacancies, you had this whole group of police officers who, not all of them, but close to between half a dozen and a dozen, all retired roughly in the same. It's a cyclical.
Right. Yep.
They got their 20 years in. They retired. They all opened up a business. Half of them opened up a business together, as we know. With that, do you see a large group of? Is there another large group of officers on the near horizon
I don't
retiring?
think so.
That was just that.
Right, right. That was a particular point in time, and that 20 years from now, that'll more than likely happen again.
It'll be somebody else's problem.
Right.
At that time. So is police the largest percentage increase of any department that you've received so far?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay, so one of your other large departments is fire. They have made their presentation. Where are they in the mix right now?
So they are slightly less than the police department. I think, they were lucky in the sense that they were able to get some state grants to purchase equipment, so they were able to remove that from their request, which helped their budget numbers. So their percentage, and I don't remember off the top of my head what their percentage
it's not
increase.
18%.
It's not even close to that. No.
Anybody else seeking a large increase?
No, I think everybody understands, the economy and that kind of thing. So trying to just maintain the current programs that we're offering.
One retirement that you had officially after you were on last time was Billy Lupian, the city engineer. Where are you with that department? Are all the positions in that department filled?
No, we're still working through that, and actually hope within the next month or so to have an absolute plan for how we're going to work that out.
Could that be promotions within, or could that be overall new
I'm
tests?
hoping that's from promotion.
And he is, I should ask this, is he officially retired?
Yes,
He is, okay.
yes.
Because he had 50 plus years.
Right. He, I can't remember the last day of work for him, I believe was January 26th or 27th.
Okay. So while they're not part of the operating budget of the city, you do have sewer and water funds as well. Where is the city in the process of making the improvements? You were here in December, or excuse me, November. We were talking about some of those improvements. Where are you in the process of improvements that most likely haven't been really overall made since the 90s to sewer and water?
So the wastewater treatment plant project is full steam ahead, but it's going to be a multi-year project, but it's in
Do you have a
progress.
cost for it yet?
The cost estimates that we're working on and the borrowing and things like that, the financing is based around about $84 million.
Okay, and so that's sewer.
Yep. And
where
on
are
the
you
water
on?
side of things, a water treatment facility renovation project is underway. That's to the point where it's, I guess you could call it wrapping up right now. That's about a $6 million investment there. And that's the sand filtration plant itself. The structure of it has been rebuilt.
We had county health on about a month ago, and they were talking about checking for lead pipes within the city of Auburn. Is that an issue?
I don't know that that's the right word, right? So it's a concern nationwide is lead pipes and their impact on drinking water.
But there was a
in
mapping
homes.
process they were going
Yep.
through, and they
So-
thought that the city might be in a better shape than some of the rural communities. of
I
Cuyahoga County.
think that's probably a safe statement, and I think we're in really good shape compared to a lot of other cities across New York State. We got a head start on this a couple of years ago. New York State had a concern about it. They were pushing an initiative. We were fortunate enough to get some money from the state to do a pretty significant pilot program on it. Our water and sewer workers from the city actually took most of that upon themselves. We did contract out a little bit of it, but we did most of it in-house. They did a great job with it. We did so well in the performance that the state actually kind of re-upped and presented us with more funding to go ahead and do a second phase of that. There are not absolutely great records. Our records probably are better than a lot of other communities, but we've got a methodology that our folks are utilizing to get through and meet the requirements of the state, because the state's looking for each community to have, I think you called it, an inventory of lead pipes in different neighborhoods.
So with the combined $90 million project, I'm assuming, well, I'm not assuming, is that all going to be paid for by taxpayers, local taxpayers and rate users?
Off the top of my head, I don't have the numbers directly off the top of my head. I believe the wastewater treatment facility, we got about $25 million in grant funding for that, another $25 million in 0% financing, and then whatever the remainder of that is, 34, or no, what's
So does that mean
24
rate increases this coming year for water and sewer?
So what we've done with the sewer over time is try to take a look at that, anticipate these capital costs, keep an eye on when other debt is going to be coming off. So that was a big thing you mentioned,
Right.
in mid to late 90s when we made that major investment in the water treatment facility. That debt will be coming off. It will be replaced with this new debt and the new payments.
But you do see some type of rate increase, though?
There will be a rate adjustment at some point in time. I don't think it's going to be massive as far as that goes on the wastewater side of things.
Other capital projects that are coming up for the city on your plate?
So we've talked about the city courts project in conjunction with the county, because our city courts reside in a county-owned building. So that's an ongoing project. We have the Lake Avenue Bridge project.
So where does that's a $9 million project?
Yes.
So where does that stand right now? I know where does it stand right now? I'll get to that.
On Lake Avenue, right over the road.
Thank you, yes, thank you. Well, it does, and that's one of the questions.
And then we want to keep it there.
And you want to keep it there, but one of the questions has been about students walking across the bridge.
Yes.
And so you've now compressed the construction season from 2 seasons to 1, correct?
So twofold, right? The twofold reason for that is, first of all, Lake Ave Bridge being out is going to be a major inconvenience. So we talked to different stakeholders, including the school district, and what's better, to have the bridge restricted for a longer period of time, or just take it right out of the equation for a shorter period of time. And we've decided for a number of reasons. First of all, obviously the construction process will be quicker, it will be better and less expensive if we just shut the thing down and replace it.
And how much of the $9 million, how much will be a local share?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Right at the
I know
moment,
you
we're looking
applied for
at
$1 million
roughly
grant.
we're looking at roughly a $2 million gap right now.
Because costs went up dramatically. Why
yes.
was that?
Like everything else, like bread, milk, and eggs, and everything else.
No. Was it the cost of replacement, or did you find more damage to the bridge?
No, we didn't. The scope of the project didn't necessarily change significantly. It's just the cost between when the projections were made and then when final budget came through on it. So there's, and we've got 2 bridge projects. Remember, we also have Aurelius Ave Bridge that saw increases in construction as well. So we've got to kind of balance those out, where the mayor's been in constant contact with our state representatives and federal representatives, trying to, no pun intended, bridge that gap.
And when do you think you'll have a price tag on the courthouse?
The courthouse, we have engineers' estimates right now. It's out for bid. Those bids are due back, I believe, mid-April. Once we actually get those bids back from the contractors, then we'll know true cost. It's estimated to be about $3 million.
And will there be a county share in there? Will the county be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
30 minutes goes very quick, as you both know. I want to thank both City Manager Jeff Dygert as well as Mary Beth Leeson, the new Comptroller. Again, congratulations on your new position. Good luck with the budget process. Have you back in the fall. Give us another update. Okay. I know the mayor will be here in a couple of weeks. He'll give us an update as well. But we want to thank you both for your time over the last half hour.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
We will be back in just a moment with Allie Colvin, the president of the Auburn Chamber Orchestra, who will be talking about a show that, a concert they're putting on this week on Sunday the 7th next door at the Auburn Junior High School. that the public can attend. It's got a patriotic theme, so please join us for that show in just a moment on Beyond the Front Page. We'll be back on Thursday with 2 brand new shows. Steve Lynch, the new county administrator. I didn't even get to that subject with you. I wonder if you've got words of advice for him. County administrator will be here to talk on inside government. And then we'll have Bonnie Blair and Mickey Post in from the Auburn Education Foundation to talk about their Hall of Distinction awardees. They're recognizing 7 Auburn High School graduates over the decades, and we'll talk a little bit about their event that is in May. We'll be back next week with Senator Rachel May, and we have shows upcoming with Jeff Parazola, the Superintendent of Schools, as well as Tessa Crawford, the business manager for the district, to talk about their budget. And we also hopefully will have Robert Harding in here to talk with candidates about the upcoming primaries that will be in June. If you have thoughts for questions for us or for guests, you can send them to cozguytho@aol.com. But I'm Guy Cosentino for CU Community College. Hope you have a good night, have a great tomorrow, but stick around for a conversation on the Auburn Chamber Orchestra.